Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to introduce you guys to Kristi from ReachForce. Kristi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Karina.
Kristi, why don't you start us off with just a little bit about who you are, what you do for ReachForce, and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I'm the director of marketing here at ReachForce, which basically means I do everything. We've got a small team here. I'm sure you guys can relate, but we do everything, or I do everything from branding to demand gen to product marketing. We sell to marketers, so I'm kind of in a unique position to be both a customer of ReachForce as well as running the marketing department. So I'm kind of in a unique position within the company to do that.
Yeah, I love that. And in our conversations together, you've talked about how you use the platform on a daily basis, which I think means a lot and says a lot. And we've had a couple sponsors who have sort of similar setups where some of their internal teams use their own tools. And I've just found that makes the whole product development process and platform development process even better when you have people internally that are like, hey, can we make this do that? Or can we make these improvements because it's actually going to improve my life? So can you expound on that a little bit? Like, let's just dive right in, since you brought it up, into ReachForce and how you specifically are using it. And then I want to kind of grill you about some of the HubSpot integration stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. So ReachForce, we're a data management and enrichment solution. And what that means is we want to make sure that your data is, well, what I call campaign ready. So you have a high level of confidence that data is both accurate and complete. So accurate in terms of all the necessary, or accurate, like the email's correct, the address correct, the phone number's correct, the revenue's correct, all those details that you need to know about that customer are accurate, but also we fill in the white space to complete that record. So where you might not have all the details needed for routing or scoring or segmentation, we actually can fill in that white space with enrichment. And we believe that data is the foundation of everything that you do. So regardless of what kind of campaigns you're running, if that's ABM, inbound, you're doing heavy events, or whatever technology that you're using, you're going to need data to support that. And a lot of times I can admit to this myself that data in general is just bad, and that's kind of my anecdotal feedback from years of having a database.
I can concur with that. I will upvote that.
Right. And we don't need, stats to tell us or research to tell us that, but there's plenty of research around like just how bad it is. And we're kind of being forced to address it by having a data strategy, with things such as GDPR and other security compliance, and just the nature of the buyers changing. We need to be on our A game when we are walking people through the customer journey. And so the more information we can kind of consume about them and deliver them these really personalized experiences, or the better, you'll see that impact in your results of those campaigns that you're running. And so data can really touch everything. And that's kind of where our sweet spot is just making sure that you can execute within confidence. So your day-to-day doesn't look much different because you're relying on your data, your same tools and data that you've always had, but you're just gonna make sure that you're not going to have someone respond to an email and say, hey, that's not my name, or, that's not my job role, things like that. So I always say I don't like to have egg on my face, and ReachForce kind of helps me have a little bit more confidence in that.
I love that. And I can't tell you, so many of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis have come to impact with HubSpot needs, and ones that have been using HubSpot for a long time. And so many of their high priority items revolve around data and data cleanup, and how do I get my data to be more reliable? And a lot of times without something like ReachForce, the answer is you just manually go in and you clean it up, because that's pretty much all you can do. So your platform and what you guys are doing, especially around kind of the account enrichment, really gets me excited. So you mentioned GDPR, and I always find, that's obviously a very hot topic right now for many companies. I feel like especially on the B2B side. So talk a little bit about what you guys have done in terms of making sure that everything that you guys are doing and how you're integrating with HubSpot and things like that are GDPR compliant and are up to kind of the best practices for managing data.
Right. So a lot of data vendors, I think a lot of people stay away from data. Like it's kind of the scary subject, both because it's one, it's not necessarily the sexy side of marketing. It's not the thing that
Mm-hmm.
I wake up wanting to do, clean up those duplicates. But yes, it is a manual, time-consuming process that we have to do. Our solution kind of helps remediate some of that. But also from a security and compliance standpoint, people are just freaked out by it, and as they rightfully should, because there's some, significant repercussions of not managing the quality, like such as opt-in and stuff like that properly. And so some people, when they hear, oh, you're around data, like we're good. It's important for our customers to know that we are ethically sourcing our data. So, and it's really helpful for them to understand where it's all coming from. So we do partner with a dozen different data providers. So data is commoditized at this point. And you can take and consume data, but is it accurate? Probably not. Like there's a lot of kind of just nuances around data specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But so we actually kind of take that away off of our customers' plate, and we partner with a dozen different data providers for different attributes. So we have a specific provider that we use for revenue, and then we will layer that on top of some other sources, and we make sure that all of our data vendors that we get that data from are kind of completely compliant. We have a whole IT security, like I was actually just reviewing it yesterday, like a security manual that's like 15 pages long and 10-point font. It's huge, just to make sure that they're ethically sourcing their data, as well as we are as, kind of as the byproduct, we're passing that on to our customers. So there's a lot of compliance things that we work them through before we ever bring in new data, as well as securing from a technology side, securing our customers' data as well, because we're essentially, what we're doing is we're taking your database, your input data, so your customer first name, last name, job title, company, right? And we're bringing it into our data set to match against. So we're just using it as a matching. And then we're saying, okay, yes, this is John Smith at, Apple. Let's pull in the attributes that we know are accurate. So that enrichment, that data that we're getting was ethically acquired. We don't crowdsource data or web scrape data, which can get you into a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also not processing personal data. So I think there's an important thing to understand, and this is to understand around just business card data, which is Kristi Bjornaas at ReachForce. And this is my job title. That's my kind of business entity, versus Kristi lives in Austin, Texas. She's got 3 kids, etc. Like we're not processing personal data. And so that's why we work specifically with B2B accounts, where you'll find very few people actually doing what we do on the kind of consumer side, just because that does kind of start crossing into more the GDPR issues.
Right. Makes total sense. So I know you guys have a HubSpot integration, and so you can pull data from HubSpot and enrich it and do all kinds of stuff with it. So tell me a little bit more about that, what that looks like for kind of the average HubSpot user. And then specifically, I would love for you to talk about the Smart Forms tool and how kind of easy that is to set up within HubSpot and for people to get going with right away.
Yeah, so from an implementation standpoint, just to understand the integration, it's a really simple integration. You're just setting up kind of a ReachForce user and some custom fields. So we have 180 plus enriched fields that you can choose from, and you would create those as custom fields in HubSpot. Again, you can always start small. I would say, pick the top 20 attributes that are the most important to you, and then kind of increase those as it makes sense, but they're just custom fields. I think the average HubSpot user would know how to do that. And then also just for the Smart Form specific piece is a line of code. Like a single line of code on your landing page is a pretty quick implementation. So from like a technical side, and then beyond that, we're able to kind of take your input data that you have, and you think about maybe the little bit of data that you have, maybe that's first name or name, company, email, state, or something very minimal. We're able to actually kind of take that out, match it into our database, and push back in through an API that enrich data. And we also give it some confidence grading of, do we think this is a duplicate or junk? Is the email valid? So we're also pushing in some kind of quality fields as well, as part of that kind of management of that data. And then as that data changes, so we know that your data is changing constantly. People are moving jobs, companies are reporting different revenue. We're constantly managing it and pushing up those updates as they come in. So if you think about your database, right, you have your kind of historical data that you somehow acquired in all these different ways. We take that and we'll actually pull it out and cleanse the entire database right at the beginning of an engagement with ReachForce. So all of that is standardized data, verified and enriched. And then we kind of block your endpoints, right? So what are all the ways that your data is coming into your system? That's sales putting in data, so we're going to pick it up there. It's through your forms, which I'll talk about, which we have smart forms, and it's through lists or other integrations. So what we make sure is your kind of historical database is kind of in this pristine condition, and then we make sure that you have all that data necessary when it's first entering the system, so that your workflows and your routing, your scoring is going to work the first time. You don't have to kind of wait to kick that in. You don't have to do progressive profiling. So you specifically asked about smart forms, which I think is the most, I don't know, it always gets the customers most excited, especially HubSpot customers, where you're so focused on the web conversion on your forms. So what Smart Forms is, it allows you to ask the most minimal amount of field on your form. We recommend 4 to 5. Again, the fields I refer to: name, company, email, job title, phone. Those are kind of optional. And then we'll enrich in real time. So when they submit, there's like a drop down that has them self-select their company. And based off of that selection, we're able to enrich all of these fields in the back end based off of our reference data. And there's a lot of benefits here, right? You're going to improve your conversion rate because you're not asking, 10 fields that sales says I must have in order to accept this lead. And you also don't have to progressively profile, and over time just to get their job title or to get their industry. You're able to get that right away, so you're not wasting those precious conversions on fields that you could have gotten otherwise. And if it's a user submit, so if I'm a user at a large enterprise company, I might not know our revenue. I might not know what specific industry we fall in, so I'm just going to guess. So it's likely not going to be accurate. So there's a lot of benefits around kind of standardizing and structuring this data in this way. Right when it hits your system, your routing is going to work right the first time. Your scoring is going to be immediately scored because you have all of the access to those fields that you segment on.
I love that. And I can't help but just think of like the lead intelligence that gives somebody like a BDR or an inside sales rep as leads are coming in, to be able to have all of this company data. And we talked about previously, HubSpot Insights gives us kind of this very high level, very like, they don't really tell us where they get it from, and it's not really always accurate. But to actually be able to have that accurate sourced data on these companies or accounts that inside salespeople would be working, that's what really gets me excited about that tool, is the power of then being able to build lists off of that data for prospecting. And like, oh my gosh, the things that you could then do in HubSpot from there are just super exciting.
Yeah, I have a couple of use cases I use internally. So you think about, the most natural person on a team to handle data as a marketing ops person, because they're kind of, dealing with all the, like, tinkering around in the tool. I have a whole dashboard built in HubSpot just specifically around my data, around how many duplicates, and specific to the ReachForce data that we push. What's the industry coverage? What's the, what's the split across my reps? Are we equally bringing in new leads that cover and feed all of our reps? Are, all these different things. Are we having a lot of duplicates or a lot of junk records from a particular campaign? I have a whole dashboard dedicated just managing that based off the ReachForce data. We're now in 2019 doing a bunch of really complex like nurtures around some of the data that we have enriched. For example, we can tell we push technology installed, so anything in front of the firewall installed, and we're able to run some competitive campaigns because we know who's using a competitor. So I can, instead of just dropping into my generic welcome nurture, I drop them into a competitive campaign, email nurture. Or if I know they're using HubSpot, I can drop into my HubSpot specific nurture that has my HubSpot case studies versus maybe a Marketo. So it's really the things that you can do not only to enable like a BDR to be very personalized in their outreach, but our ability from a marketing standpoint to kind of nurture them at scale through a really personalized experience is really helpful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Kristi, if anyone has questions about ReachForce or anything that you guys do or wants to talk to somebody, where can they find you?
So I am both myself and ReachForce. We're on LinkedIn and Twitter. So at ReachForce, I'm on all of those things. And then I'm at ATX Kristi on Twitter. And we'll be sure to kind of include my email and everything so you can get a hold of me.
Awesome. And if any of you want to start a free trial of that SmartForms tool that Kristi was just talking about, you can go to reachforce.com/Hubcast and learn a little bit more and sign up right there. Kristi, thanks so much for joining me today. It was great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for chatting. I've always loved talking to you guys.
All right. Well, happy ReachForcing and happy HubSpotting.